It's a subcommittee.
Are we ready to go?
Let's call the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call here. Kathy Hinkert.
Here.
Melanie Parma, I understand, is excused. Gary Delville.
Here.
So Gary, our distinguished leader of the RDA, is distinguished.
Yeah.
Not He was on fire until the rain, and then he distinguished. Our distinguished leader of the RDA is here, so let's start off with regular order of business, unless, Kevin, you've got something else that we need to interject. If not, we'll get started on the RFPs.
No, I think overall, Ken did a great job putting this together and getting out that RFP in a very short time frame. I think the impetus was on this as a development site, put short-term, we got in a place where we were kind of in a rock and a hard place, right, in terms of moving forward with this acquisition last December. But we felt, look, there was a short-term use. We had some parking needs in terms of, through our downtown portfolio, right, offices, are leasing up, residents are having some spillover, and we just need that parking. So there's a short-term use, but really, we bought that lot because it's a 2.4 acre site, very close. To the heart of the central business district, down a revamped corridor, and really is a great opportunity for us to help shape future development of that site.
Absolutely.
And so we quickly turned this around and put it out there, and I think we've got two great proposals in terms of, both from qualified firms. They're two very different proposals, but I think each of them works with the site in a unique way.
Yes.
And so I think what we wanted to do today now is to put in front of you the proposals themselves, give each party a representative an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the specific proposal, about their company, about their partnerships, and perhaps answer any questions that you may have. There is closed session language on here if you want to discuss potentially how we might negotiate an agreement moving forward, to look at what type of option or other types of agreement we might have to do this moving forward. But then basically out of this, I think we would like a recommendation to go to the full RDA next Tuesday, where then you can start the process of continuing negotiations in terms of crafting the planning option or ultimately a development agreement.
So I think for today's meeting, we've allotted 10 minutes of time for each developer to present their proposals, followed by 20 minutes for each developer for a question and answer session. We randomly picked, and actually T-Wall will be presenting first here. So we'll give them 10 minutes and then the follow-up 20 minutes for questions.
Excellent. Sounds great. How about we take a motion then to open the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to open the floor. Let's turn it over to you, Terrence, and you've got the floor.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see if there's a clock around. Okay. So, thank you for having us up. We've made a proposal here for owner-occupied housing, so I think that's a very important aspect of this. It's not rental. There'll be 33 units, approximately 3 stories on this side, the Monroe Street side, and 2 stories on this side. We've put a couple buildings on the end so that we can combine with a wall, brick wall here, kind of create a more of a building feel on these streets. You know what I mean? Instead of just a parking lot, instead of just seeing a parking lot, we'd have a nice articulated wall with some landscaping in front of it, so it kind of get more of an urban feel on those streets. A very nice center courtyard with a lounge pool. So this is a small pool, maybe a hot tub, fire pit, like a pavilion for picnicking. We've kept, since the utilities are in the alleyway, we've kept the alleyway easement, for the utilities. We'd like to have the alley vacated so it can be private property, and we have this would be a gated community. I think that's very important for owner occupants to be here, to have a gated and have a secure community. The 3-story buildings could also, internally, we've designed a concept that has the ability to have an internal personal elevator. So if somebody is older and they want to avoid the stairs, they can have a small personal elevator inside the unit. There'd be parking inside, of course, the unit on the first floor. We were trying to stay out of the ground, so our garages are on the first floor at grade. We've tried to articulate this to be a nice, courtyard feeling, so some nice patterned concrete there. Lots of landscaping around it. The exterior will be approximately, some brick, some hardy plank, very nice, some gabled roofs, that sort of thing. And I can show you sort of what we call a concept box. It's not an articulated, it's not showing the details of the architecture, but you kind of get the concept of, we have a lot of different gables going on the roofs. Each unit would have a direct entry to the street, to the sidewalk. I think that's important, so you're really activating the street. You're making this very pedestrian friendly. Somebody can walk home, walk to downtown, walk to City Deck, and then walk right back in their unit. They don't have to, you're not going to see a bunch of garages facing the street. Those are hidden inside. And then people have nice balconies overlooking the courtyards, the courtyard area with the amenities, so that's a nice amenity for them. Some more pictures. And, if we're selected with architect, we'll do the full, architectural design and run that by you. This is kind of our swimming pool. We'd probably have a glass wall here, not a solid wall. We'd probably got to have a fence around the pool, so we'd probably do a glass fence around the pool. There's extra parking on here, about 108 parking spaces for 33 units, so there's tons of parking available for the families, the people who are here, and guests and visitors. I think there'd be a lot of people who would, empty nesters selling a home, would move here to be downtown, the urban environment, all the activities downtown. I think you'll see some young people, maybe before they have kids, they might have a unit here, might be their first home. We have, at City Deck, we have people in their 30s and 40s and 50s, either single individuals or couples, and they're working professionals, they're people at the local, medical groups, banking groups, all the different businesses downtown. So I think you're going to have a broad range of demographics. Probably half of them, according to our statistics for our units, probably half of them are in the 20s and 30s, and half are in their 40s or 70s. So you're going to get a broad range of demographics within these units. So it's a townhome design, and I want to show you something I think very, very, very important. And this is absolutely key to making an owner-occupied development plan here work, that these are not condominiums. Okay, that's very important. We don't call them condominiums. They're not legally condominiums. We're not using condominium plat. We are using what's called a zero lot line attached single-family lot. So these are single-family homes, and that's important for a couple reasons. One, for the buyers, they can get a single-family home loan. In other words, a standard mortgage that's considered standard for Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, who purchase the mortgages from the banks in pools. And so it's very important to comply with those Fannie and Freddie regulations. If we do condos, forget it.
Yep.
It's impossible to get condos financed for buyers or for developers. The only way you can do condos is to have all cash, and all the buyers have to all cash, or you get a bank that's willing to hold the loan in-house, and banks don't like to do that because it ties up their capital.
Yep.
So they like to recycle their capital. They sell the loan to Fannie and Freddie. So the loan has to be standardized. So we're making this single-family lots, and so these will be single-family homes. Shared maintenance, we're going to have an easement for shared maintenance, and we'll have the easement will have an association fee, basically, that would cover the cost of snow removal, lawn care, landscaping, et cetera. Anything on the exterior. Might even, I think we'd probably even offer, like we have in our townhomes up in Fish Creek, we'd probably offer even, change the furnace filter, anything that's sort of common to all the units to minimize maintenance, because some of the owners maybe they're older and they're spending 6 months down south, and then they're here in the summer for 6 months. So they want everything taken care of. So we're going to offer that full service as a package, so you don't have to deal with outside maintenance, you don't have to deal with pool maintenance, you don't have to deal with lawn care, et cetera, et cetera. That's a big deal. The other thing about the financing and having single-family homes is because it's easier for the developer to finance, right? For us to get the construction loan, that makes it's not a condominium loan. And for the banks, because it's a standard loan, they want to finance us, and they also want to finance buyers, and then they earn their fees, and then they resell those loans to Fannie and Freddie. So it's a win-win all around in terms of the financial structure, and that has to go back to the type of plat that we're doing and the type of setup that we're doing in terms of not having a condominium plat. So that's also much better value because you get a little lower interest rate in most cases on a single-family home than you would on a condominium, less risky for the bank. So that's a lower cost for the buyers too. So I'll just open it up for questions, if you have any, and
I had several, but let's start with the alleyway. Does the city still have access to that with the infrastructures underneath there?
so with the alleyway, there'd still be an easement in place for all the utilities.
Yep.
If the city needed that, they could be included in the easement for access, yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so, and so we didn't put any, we can't put any improvements on that, so it's just concrete, it's just, you can't put a physical structure on those utilities, whatever's underneath there.
Market analysis, tell us a little bit about your market analysis, how you know this is gonna go.
So, we've been looking at, and we watch the whole state, we watch the overall economy for the country.
Right.
It's kind of a thing, I have an economics degree, so I
Yes,
can do that.
yes,
So,
yes.
That's a side thing. But there's an incredible shortage of overall housing. A couple things have happened. Single-family housing has become very scarce. One, initially because of the larger demographic pool of millennials
Right.
coming into the market, right? But, so there's a shortage of apartments because that bulge is coming into the market, right?
Yep.
And then there's a shortage of single-family housing because of the Great Recession. Half the builders, half the developers went out of business. And there's fewer, the developer, you take Viridian, Viridian in Madison used to do 650 homes a year. And, it took them quite a few years to get back up to like 450 homes a year. So they're doing less. The developer that used to do, 30 homes a year is doing 5 or 10. The one that was doing 5 is doing 2,
Yes.
So every builder, every developer is doing less than they used to. And in the last 24 months, due to the labor and material shortage, the tariffs being put in place, and other factors, the cost of construction for housing has gone up by 30 to 36%. So the house that used to cost $450,000, which would kind of be your middle income, it's kind of like your second home. Your starter home might have been $250,000, and your second home your first home $250,000, second home $450,000. Now that $450,000 is really it's $600,000. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's outrageous how costs have skyrocketed. And your $250,000, is like almost impossible to do. We're going to try to keep these in that, $350,000 to $450,000, $500,000 for maybe the larger corner units. Try to keep them in that affordable range. But there's incredible housing shortage,
Okay.
especially owner-occupied housing, in addition to apartments. And, you got the baby boom demographics also moving out of single-family housing now into, they want to go to apartments or something smaller, less maintenance. So yeah, there's going to be plenty of demand. We just have to make sure that we can keep it within the right price point,
Yes.
right?
Kind of related, city occupancy, is that?
It's always been, it's 100%. I mean, every week in the summer, you'll have a turnover, maybe a few units, but we've had incredible stability there. Wide variety of demographics and age groups and incomes. It's really been a huge success. That project brought over $10 million of disposable income to downtown. And that's important because when you bring this kind of disposable income into downtown, they support the downtown restaurants and the stores and the businesses. And that's really hugely important. It all has an effect throughout the whole downtown economy. That's why I think it's important to have owner-occupied. I think it's important to have the high incomes to support the downtown. You do need affordable housing, but affordable housing isn't going to have the disposable income that will support the restaurants and the businesses. So there's not the multiplier effect that you would get.
From a tax base, 8 million, what we're thinking?
Yeah, 8 to 10 million is kind of what we estimated for a tax base, depending on what they're assessed at.
I've got other questions about that. We'll just have some questions there, sorry.
Sure.
From a square footage perspective, is this, am I reading this correctly? One bedroom's about 600, 950 square foot, two bedroom.
So we'll run up to, depending on the unit, it could be up, some of these are going up to 2,200. We'll have to get the final layout with the architect. So they'll vary depending on the unit and what we're going to see for these two different building types.
Okay.
And you're also counting, I just want you to understand there's a little misnomer, because you don't count the unfinished square footage. You're only counting the finished square footage, just so everyone understands what we're counting. So you're not counting the garage, you're not counting, something like
Right.
that. So, okay.
Have you thought through the mix, Terrence, on this of 1, 2 bedroom, 3? I'm not sure what you're thinking about mix.
Yeah, I would think that, well, these, for example, these 3 stories, we've designed one in Middleton, Wisconsin, that we're calling them a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, but then there's a bonus room on the first floor in front of the garage. And so the bonus room could be used as a bedroom, so somebody could use it as an office. Say you're a realtor, mortgage broker, insurance agent, you could be working in your home office here on the first floor, looking out on the street, put your little sign out front, that has another advantage of the design. So a lot of them are going to be 2 bedrooms, some of the corners we may be able to get an official 3-bedroom with be a smaller bedroom den or something like that. Sometimes we have to call it a den if it's not, doesn't have the windows or doesn't have the access that a bedroom legally has to have. So you might see some 2 bedrooms, 2 bath with a bonus room, or you might see some with a den. You might see a couple 3 bedrooms, but most of all, they're going to be 2 bedroom with something extra.
Okay.
Yeah.
And price point wise?
Well, we're hoping to keep it in that $350 to $450 range is our goal. And I say hoping because every week things change. We saw the Canadian lumber jump up 30% overnight, and then it came down over time. So literally every week, interest rates, the Fed raised interest rates, and they're like, oops, sorry, just kidding, and then they're lowering interest rates a matter of 2 months later. So literally costs change. The subs, they don't even want to quote until you have the project you're ready to commit. They don't want to commit to a number, or they might commit and say, I'll hold that for a week, subject to if there's a notice coming through from a supplier like lumber, that is going to increase the cost. So that's our target range, and it'll subject to the costs of the project, what we can do in terms of keeping it reasonable,
On the parking, it's not all exterior parking, is it?
No, every unit has garages.
Okay.
So every unit has garage,
Okay.
2-car garage.
Right.
If we did squeeze in a couple, smaller units than with a single-car garage, we do have some units in Middleton where we designed about 1,600 square feet with a single-car garage, a little bit lower price point. So it just depends on what the architect can squeeze in here.
And you said they're all, or generally, 2-stall garage?
Well, yes, right now that's our plan, but if, for some reason, if you wanted us to have a single car unit that's a smaller square footage with a lower price point, we could do that. Like we could take a couple of the 2-bedroom units and take 2 of those and turn that into 3 smaller units of 1,600 square feet, single car garage, lower price point, so we could do that, if that's something you're interested in.
Can I see the other picture again, where you're showing
Sure.
the rooftops? And I know you haven't got the final
Right.
design on here, but can you give us a clue? Are they all going to look different? They all look the same? What are you going to be made of?
Oh, sure. So what we'll do is we'll do some brick on the outside, on the street side. It'll be more hardy plank on the inside, some hardy plank accents. So we try to give it an individual look. So we might do every 2 or 3 as a look, where you might have a certain brick there, and we'd switch brick that's complementary, not radically different, but
Right.
complementary.
Okay.
And then go down like that. So you're not having the same brick on the entire length. So you're breaking up the facade with the 3-dimensionality with the canopies, and then by changing the siding colors and the masonry colors, I think it's important to break it up.
Yeah, I agree.
And then gables also, couple little different accents, you know, so that the accents are slightly different, you know. But you still want to have something that ties it all together, which is kind of like the overall design, like, and the window framing would be similar.
And the two kind of smaller standalone buildings at the north and south ends, is there something unique or different about those, or kind of what are you thinking about those?
Well, those are basically, we just didn't want to leave this all like as an expanse of you're looking by a parking lot, you know? So we came up with basically two units and 2 units here, with an attached wall here. So there's a central, you know, one entrance point with a pedestrian gate and a drive-in spot. And then, it, you know, from the outside here, when you're driving along, it looks, you know, like an urban downtown community. It's not a sea of parking, you know. So this adds some real units with some walkouts here, you know, to the street, which I think is nice. They're showing, the architect, you know, kind of showed a driveway here. I think we should just have the driveways in the back, the garages here though, and have no garage door here. I personally think that would look better, you know, to give it more pedestrian level to walk out unit. Yeah. And some of these, I'd say half of these people probably have pets, you know, dogs, and they'll want to have a walkout unit so they can walk right out onto the sidewalk, walk their pet.
I read about the city's commitment, but let me hear your own words.
Thank you. I was gonna say, I'm gonna go through the financials.
The city's commitment in terms of,
TIF and whatever.
okay, sure, so the land, yes, we would need the land to be provided, you know, $1 or whatever, and then what we call 100% of TIF increment. So we'll sit down with, you know, Kevin and your finance director, and we'll, your staff, and we'll, you know, work with them. You know, we can make our own estimate. It's usually always higher than what the city's estimate is, so.
Conservative.
I don't want to throw out something and scare you, you know. I'd rather sit down with your finance director and walk through the TIF calculation, because as you know, it's depending on the TIF life, how much is left, right? How much,
Yep.
you know, what we think the estimated increment is.
Yep.
Are we going to have a certain base increment in the TIF agreement or not? You know, what interest rate, right, is being charged currently in the marketplace, right? So all those factors go into a calculation, and so in order to keep this affordable, again, the cost of construction has gone up 30 to 36% in the last 24 months. I mean, I built the same building, the same apartment building right now in a location that I built 2 years ago, the exact same building, 30% more cost. Unbelievable. It's huge. So trying to keep these within that affordable range. If we start getting, you know, too high costs, then we start getting out of a price point that's affordable for people. You know, you don't want to get up above $550 or $600. That's too much. You know, we need to be in that $350 to $450. Maybe a couple of units that are larger or a little bit more. Try to keep them reasonable.
And part of the TIF agreement would also be, if I read this correctly, no tax space until you sell 95%.
Right, yeah. So what we're willing to do, because we want to, you know, get the loan and start construction, we're willing to build them. There's a carrying cost to that, right? And what can really kill you is, you know, you cross over that January 1st threshold, and you just get killed with the property taxes. And, you know, you have no revenue, right? So that, I mean, if you can do that, I mean, if the city can do that, that's going to be hugely helpful to keeping the costs down and allow us to go ahead and build them, you know, all at once. Otherwise, we'll have to come up with a phasing plan, like maybe build one of these and then do a model unit, and then, you know, try to pre-sell some, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
We're trying to keep the carrying costs to be reasonable. You know, if it was farm, you know, if it was land, we'd put corn on it or something, keep the assessment down. Here you can really get killed. I mean, 33 units, we don't know. We just don't know how quickly they could all sell out, you know, quickly, or they could, or you never know what happens, you know. We had some townhomes in Fish Creek, and we hit the market, and then the same week, they launched the war in Iraq, and it killed the market for 6 months. So you just don't know, you know, what's going to happen in this world today. You know, just so much uncertainty. You just don't know. So we're going to be trying to pre-sell some before start of construction, you know, get contracts. Then there'll be some sales during construction, and then there'll be buyers who wait to see a model, and, you know, the final buyers will come in after that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Matt, he's got one question.
No, actually, I'm good, Gary. My biggest one was about the references to zero lot and the way you had stated it a couple times. Like, that must mean something, I just
Yeah,
don't know what
zero
it
lot
is.
line attached, single-family homes. Is that what you mean?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Very key to the whole thing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you would
Yeah.
put
The only
a lot of
other wrap.
detail on that.
Yeah, exactly. The only other wrap-up is, we have a home here, we have an office here. I'm here all the time, so, we're here, we're local, we're ready to go. Any other questions, or?
That's a trivial question.
I'm good right now.
Everybody else, Kathy, you're good?
Yep, I'm
Okay,
good.
okay, good. Well, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That's enough.
Yeah, very nice, thank you very much.
Does anybody need this?
No. Okay, since we're in open, I think we can just stay open.
Yes.
And then have Gorman and Associates come up and talk to us about their plan. Thank you.
So, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Ted Madcom. I'm the Wisconsin Market President for Gorman & Company. Unfortunately, my architect was supposed to be here. He's got 2 feet of water in his basement, so my boards aren't here. But I think I've got a PowerPoint, and you've got, I think, a plan there, because what I wanted to do is go over the plan first, which is why I wanted the board before I started my PowerPoint. Do you guys have, you had a plan that we submitted with the full RFP response?
I love it.
Yeah.
I can share.
And if not, if you go on the aerial where you were before, where you're showing Monroe, I could walk you through it.
Then I just pull that page out.
Yeah, just go on, where you went through.
All right.
Yeah.
There you
that's
go.
good. Yep.
We can share.
So Monroe Street here, so we've been sniffing around downtown Green Bay for quite a long time, trying to do something here. One of my first projects was working with the Gannett Publishing Building, which is on Monroe and Walnut, I think it's on there, and we were trying to do a co-op grocer. We had new market tax credits lined up that didn't quite go, but we thought that was just such a perfect amenity to this part of what I would call downtown, and this part of downtown needs a little work. And I think that when I went to actually see this site and saw the full city block as a parking lot, I was just like, oh my God, this is an amazing opportunity. And so we thought that the best use of that site would be a grocery store. And we have a grocer who we work with, Maurer's Market, who actually, she's unfortunately, Christy Maurer, she's the lead speaker in a conference in Wisconsin Dells today, so she couldn't be here. But she is an independent grocer. She owns 3 sites, one in Milwaukee, one in Janesville, and one in Wisconsin Dells. She actually started the Fresh Market on University in Madison, on University and Lake. I don't know if you know where that is, right downtown. Highest grossing grocery store in the state of Wisconsin per square foot. She sold that, and which is why she's looking for opportunities. And so luckily, we've glommed onto her, and she loves this site. It's a little bit risky to her. Right now, it's a food desert, so the risk really to a grocer is bringing people to her as a point of destination where they're not used to shopping. That's just the basic. And what we try to do here, and I have to emphasize that the site plan that you have in your packet and that we came up with really is designed around the grocer, but it is not inflexible in terms of location. So in other words, we put the grocery here on Pine and Monroe, and then our apartment building is coming, alongside Monroe. It could be on Cherry as well. We are flexible for that. But the components of it is we have 85 surface stalls. We have 70 underground parking stalls for the residents, and 85 surface stalls with 80 apartments. with a WIDA financed structure. We would actually submit the WIDA finance structure. I'm assuming this parcel is zoned, is that correct? From what we submitted, based on the RFP, it seemed like we were conforming to the zoning, right?
Right.
So, so that would be possible, since it is zoned, to submit an application this year in December, if we were chosen. And what we had were, and Terrence actually talked about it, the residential component that we think is, I'm not sure it's a 100% home ownership site, and I'll introduce Scott in a second. Scott with NeighborWorks, who's going to be our partner here. We've been discussing that going back and forth. Scott's bullish on the home ownership, and I'm kind of like, I'm not sure it's a total home ownership site. It might be a market rate rental site. But what we'd like to do is buffer Quincy Street with some townhomes. That would be a market rate townhome. And then the grocery store would be on this corner with the affordable apartments across on Monroe. And then there would be a big parking lot here, there to service the grocery store. And I said we could flip that as well. So primarily what we're looking at is 56 affordable apartments and 24 market rate apartments. So that would be usually in a WIDA deal, you would have 15% of your units would be market rate, not income restricted. That's what market rate means in our world. This would be double that. It'd be 30% would be market rate, because we think this is a great housing site. However, the grocery store, I think, is the primary driver in terms of design and how the site's laid out. But I really believe that the 30% market rate would be great here, as well as the 70% affordable, and really add a bookend to downtown and kind of create that stopgap for downtown right there, because right here would really be a gap filler, I think, in terms of where downtown begins and ends. What I want to do is introduce Scott. Scott is the COO of NeighborWorks, and Noel and I have been talking about doing a deal together for a long time, and so we finally found this site as our opportunity. And Scott, just wanted to have you introduce yourself a little bit as a stakeholder in the project.
Sure. Well, I think I've met everyone. We come here often. Thank you. No, NeighborWorks is very excited about this project. It's we're excited to be a stakeholder in it. In fact, I think we're actually giddy about it. I think we're probably beyond excited. It checks a lot of boxes, right? So this site has 3 strong things happening, right? So we often come to you and talk about affordable housing, check. We also, and I hope that no one ever gets sick of these pictures, but this mid-density type of housing, that's another need in the neighborhood and in Green Bay. So that checks another box. So we've got some high density, some mid-density, and I think the community's been talking about a grocery store for a while. Has that come up before, right? Yeah. So that checks another huge box. Now that isn't necessarily within our wheelhouse, but boy, if it enhances the neighborhood, how could that be a bad thing? It is a food desert. We've seen a lot of proposals come and go, but I think this is the one that's going to stick.
So I was just going to go over our PowerPoint real quick. Gorman & Company, based out of Madison. We do projects all over the state. I'm the market president. I think the key thing is that we're the developer, the architect, the general contractor, the property manager. So all compliments come to me, but all criticisms come to me. And there's a one-stop shop, and we're kind of proud of that because we think we respond very well in those capacities. Once again, 2-component mixed-use project, 80 units, 56 affordable, 24 market rate, apartments and townhomes. That would be on Quincy Street, the townhomes. 70 underground parking stalls, 85 surface stalls. The grocery would be 24,000 square feet, pretty good sized grocery, and operated by Mowers Market. Total development cost of the entire thing would be $24 million. Annual tax increment would be about $160,000 a year, because that'll be pertinent when we talk about a TIF. And then the mixed-use development with the grocery and housing, which we think is a great mix. Okay, sources and uses. The WIDA deal is, you guys have probably seen this before. First mortgage, Federal Home Loan Bank is kind of no-brainer gap financing, which is great for affordable deals. The LIHTC equity that comes in with the sales of the tax credit. As you know, in terms of the tax credit housing, what tax credits do is you sell them to a major bank or some other user for 10 years. They infuse that equity, and the way it works is that you take that equity, this number, it gets paid within the first 24 months of the project. You apply it to your construction costs, so it drives down your debt, and that allows you to charge lower rent. Okay, that's how it works. What's great about that formula is it's market rate quality housing. You know, it's not old 1960s, rent subsidized housing. This is market rate housing that is then affordable to people, which is great. This is the one I wanted to talk about, which is the grocery. So it's about a $5.6 million total. Our first mortgage is at that level. Then we came up with a scheme of the new market tax credits, because it is a food desert. It is a new market tax credit eligible tract. It is not highly distressed, which is challenging. However, with a TIF in place and with a food desert, you can bring that up a notch in terms of the eyes of the Treasury to something that qualifies for many allocatees. We have 2 identified that this could go to. The only issue is, do they place them before we get our tax credits from WIDA, or else we have to go to the next round? Okay, right now we actually have 2 allocatees in hand with new market tax credits that if we get them, we could apply them to the deal. However, we're thinking that maybe they can't hold those that long. It would be the next round of new market tax credits. We thought that leverage with the TIF was appropriate, because we're bringing a third-party source, kind of match it with the TIF. What this is doing is really bringing down the construction cost of the grocery so she can operate at $10 a square foot, because everything here is success of the grocery store. We don't want her, she's doing a similar project in Madison. She's willing to go $15 a square foot because of the location and where it is. Here she's like, this is a $10 a square foot market. And so that's what we have to target that. So the construction cost of everything is sized to have that $10 a square foot rent. The private equity would be $683, which would be our skin in the game. We can go over that after you guys, I think it's in your packet as well. Development team, Mowers Market, she was supposed to, present. She's not here. But Scott, also in NeighborWorks, is kind of our stakeholder. They'll get a percentage of the partnership, and they'll be in there in the whole mixed-use project. Here's some Mowers. She's got this urban market in downtown Milwaukee, and then she's got 2 25,000 square foot groceries in Wisconsin Dells and Janesville. And that's it. Oh, here's a site plan. Oh, here we go. Oh, I didn't even know this was on there. Great. So this is kind of where we are here, where this is Pine Street, Monroe. This is the grocer, and the affordable housing apartments will come across here with the parking kind of shielded. This is what we thought would be best in terms of shielding this horrible parking lot, because nobody likes that. Could we switch that around where you wanted, townhomes here or something? Yeah, we're not like pledged to that, but we think, but this is the component she needs, this square footage, this amount of parking spaces, and everything else. She was kind of like, you guys can do whatever you want, but I need that. So that was kind of geared toward her success. Here's the massing model, which we did, which shows the townhomes that would be on Quincy, facing the neighborhood, Monroe up here, and then Pine Street here, really real quick. Okay, so once again, kind of accelerated timeline. When I looked at this, I was a little surprised, but my first question was, are we zoned? And I think we are zoned, because as I read the RFP, we conformed our plan to your zoning. So if I can get a letter saying that that the city, that we are able to build 80 units here, that's all we need really for our WIDA application. So assuming all of this goes towards us, which is yet to be determined, we would, even for WIDA, you don't need to do this to finalize the development agreement. That is not 100%, but you would have to be site control. So if development agreement means site control, you would have to finalize that, or it could just be an option on the land. WIDA has kind of been flexible on what that looks like. Does that have to be a full 26-page development agreement at this point? And then you'd submit the LIHTC application in December. You'd get an award announcement. We score very well here. So what we would do is we would go at risk in terms of design. And then that would also, if we had the new market, if we were awarded the RFP, if we were gonna do this submission in December, we would line up and try to keep that new market tax credit allocatee at us and say, because we're a pretty credible player in the marketplace, we'd say, stay with us, let us be here, until the award here. Hopefully we get it, we score very well, and then we would probably close in April. We possibly could close in November. That would be a stretch because we'd have to design and everything before that, but there is an outside chance we could do that, and then the construction completion would be about probably 12 to 14 months from there, from when we closed. That's it, yeah.
Can you go back to the site plan real quick?
Yep. Which one, that one, or?
The ground level.
Okay.
Right there. Okay, so where's our alleyway?
So your alleyway was, your Google, I'd have to see it again,
Okay.
but he did move this. This was in the middle here.
Yes.
There's a one in the middle, and they moved it over. Now, that's just a question to you guys, like, what's in there? We could move it, but it's a parking lot, so I can't imagine there's a ton of stuff in there.
So that's what we're going through right now, and that would be part of the consideration of, I think, we sent out the RFP with the estimation of, right, we don't know everything that's under there.
Right.
But with that, we're going through right now and finding out what exactly the infrastructure is under there and what potentially would cost to move those utilities
Yes.
left or right.
Or can we be flexible in this so we don't have to do that?
Correct.
Right.
Yep, and I think there's, right, a cost to everything, and that's where we talk about that cost. Is it cheaper to ship the building, or is it cheaper to
Right.
move the utilities? So we should have our arms around that hopefully by the RDA meeting next
On
week.
Tuesday? Okay. And the city commitment is $800,000 on tip, and I presume the land.
In the land, I'm sorry, for $1, correct.
Okay.
Which I know is a big deal.
On that site plan, Ted, how do you access the underground parking? And is it intended that the underground parking is all dedicated to the affordable rate housing, or is that
Yes.
for the grocery store, or?
No,
what
it would
is
be
that?
all residential. I'm going to not fake that I know where the underground parking comes in, because I'm not sure I do.
It's off of Pine.
Is it which one?
Off of Pine
Oh, off
Street.
of Pine,
So,
that's
on
what
the
I thought it was
top
off of Pine, but I didn't see it. Here's Quincy, over here?
Yep, on the
Okay.
top right, there's an access at a curb cut. Right towards the
Right here?
building. Yep, up.
Up here, there, right there, right? Yeah.
Little one.
Well, that's the grocery, so I think it might be right there, but I'm not exactly sure. It might be down there, you might be right, it might come underneath the grocery. Right. I'm not exactly sure, but it would service the residential only, though.
So not real clear, maybe Scott can help with this, if it's apartments or there's some home ownership?
No, it's apartments.
No apartments, Scott?
Yes.
Yeah, so the high density, the multi-level
Yep.
would be all apartments.
Okay.
And this is where Ted and I have been talking with the condos or the
On
townhouses. On
Oh,
Quincy,
okay. Well,
that would be potential home ownership.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
that's-
could, what we've done, and this is, just like the condominium thing, what we've done is if you have a kind of pioneering housing development that you say is home ownership, very hard to get financing for. If you say that, and we've done this in Milwaukee, if you say that these are rentals, okay, but as soon as they rent them, as part of their lease, they can buy this tomorrow for a strike price that is reasonable. Okay, everybody knows what it is and it's reasonable. And these guys would kind of facilitate that. And then you work with your tenant to get the home ownership piece in place, and they can take it out at any time.
Right.
But you gotta finance it at a rental that the bank is comfortable, and they're like, okay, if nobody buys it, we're good. But if somebody buys it, they take you out, great, you pay down the loan. So that's kind of the way we've been doing that. And you know, you don't do that with 200 units, but you do that with, 15 townhomes.
Okay. Any answer, or,
Can I ask a little bit about the grocery store? Because there's, the townhomes and the apartments and the grocery store.
Mhm.
So when you talk about a 2021 date of breaking ground, is that same with the grocery? Is that
Yeah.
all?
It would all be one thing, right?
And you have the commitment from Mowers
Yeah.
and?
Yeah, I mean, if we, before we put an application in, before we would sign a development agreement with you or whatever, she would have a lease signed that would have all of that in it. We would fully expect that. We haven't done that yet because I know her very well. We're very good friends, so her word's good. But that, we've kind of worked through the pro forma with her, but all that would be finalized, obviously, before we would sign it.
And the tax base is 18 million, is that what I heard?
The tax, well, the $160,000 is the tax increment. The total development cost is 24 million. However, the assessment for an affordable deal is less than the total development cost because of the rental income is
Yep.
lower than what the construction cost would dictate.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So we went through this with TWG and Broadway Lofts. Example, $22, $23 million cost, but the assessment came out, we're anticipating it's probably going to be somewhere between 7.5 and 8 million.
Correct.
Because we project our assessments on the NOI, and when you're capping lease rates, it only assesses at a certain
Sure,
level.
understand.
And so, have you worked with them on what the tax increment would be, or is that completely your calculation?
It's our calculation, yeah. We've actually had no interaction with staff on this at all.
Correct. So we've let the developers propose. I've got some back of the envelope spreadsheets, kind of where I think they might come out.
Sure.
Based on how this body feels, we'll take the proposal and work more closely with their assessor to kind of get our arms around what those numbers might exactly be.
Yeah, we take what we think is the Green Bay assessment policies, put a value on it, and just kind of dictate or estimate what we think the assessment is.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I can say that both what's been predicted so far is pretty ballpark, so.
Okay.
Good thing is you have two diametrically opposed projects. You're not picking the developer, you're picking the project.
Yeah, and I have some questions on the scoring and all of that, so I don't know if we, yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions?
All right.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Okay.
good. I think we're good then, Ted.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Is that,
Thank you very much.
okay, then I'll take a motion to go back to regular order of business.
I'll make motion, go back to regular order.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, go back to regular order of business. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, back to regular order of business. Is this probably the time for us to go into closed session?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe what might be appropriate to do is, two things. One, we talked about this internally with our projects team here on the floor. And if Ken wants to maybe provide kind of a high-level summary of just some things that we saw as we went through, some advantages or weaknesses of each project, kind of give some context. And then I guess any questions for Ken, and then after that, I would recommend going to closed session. I think if we want to talk a little bit about some of the numbers and potentially, what's been requested in terms of TIF incentive, and how we might approach, negotiating an agreement with each of these parties. That's something that we probably should do in closed session.
Absolutely.
But I think first, if Ken wants to provide just an overview, what the staff saw in terms of the project, I think that would help in terms of making deliberations.
Yeah, certainly. So we put together at our projects team basically an evaluation criteria that went through the scoring points that were laid out in the RFP. And basically just looking through these here, we had the main points: the alignment with strategy, design and use, investment, and capacity and experience. On the surface, both projects, we thought, they fit the site very well. As far as alignment with our strategy, the Gorman project basically checked all the boxes as far as alignment with strategy, as far as making the city safer, more productive, accessible, innovative. On the T-Wall Enterprises side, some of those factors weren't quite as clear. One of the issues we had on that side, the perception of safety as far as having the, more like the closed gated community, kind of gives that perception of, lesser, not as safe of an area. And that kind of spilled over into the design and use of the project. Points on the Gorman side of the project that were positives, looking at the higher density mixed-use development, which is what we had asked for in the RFP. On the T-wall side, more of the, heavy on the residential. Factors with the alley were an issue that I think T-wall, they did a really good job of incorporating that alley and leaving it as we requested, leaving it open. Now, with the presentations today, Gorman had talked about changing the site around if they needed to, but that was a concern that we had there on their side. I think with the Gorman project, adding the brochure, mixed units, LMI, we thought that scored pretty well for us. Back on the T-wall side, as far as the design and use, the units, there was a strong massing on the residential side, no break in the units. They had talked today, about breaking up those facades with some design changes with the materials. As far as the investment side, Gorman scored very well. As far, they're requesting the free lot and $80,000 of the
800.
Sorry, $800,000. Sorry, that would have been a
Important zero.
Yes, that is a very important zero. Where on the T-wall side, the 100% TIF, and we looking at the balance of those finances with the amount of units that are provided, we felt that the Gorman project scored a little bit higher there. As far as the capacity and experience, we know both companies have showed strong projects in the past. We did score higher on the T-wall is a local company. Gorman does bring in a new mix. This would be their first development in the area. So we're adding another developer to our market if we would go with their project. We also like that they added in another local developer with NeighborWorks. Having that partnership, I think, NeighborWorks has showed success in our community, and we know that their townhome model has worked in the neighborhood close to here. So overall, at the staff level, we would be recommending the Gorman project for this. I guess if you guys have any questions, I can answer those. We also have the rest of our staff here that helped with this scoring as well.
I do have one, and it's under the investment section on the Gorman project, and it says, not sure of NeighborWorks' design of financial ask. And I'm not sure what that means.
Yes, so with that, there was nothing in the proposal that discussed that, and I think that they touched on that a little bit today, that in their structure, they're not sure if those are going to be rentals or homeowner, and so they kind of touched on that.
In the townhomes, okay.
In the townhomes
Got it.
themselves, correct. So when we were grading these, that was a little uncertain, but I think they touched on that today, and I think they have a little bit of work left on their side to figure out what that structure looks like. So.
Was there actually a numerical value put on this here? We actually end up with a number, or is this it?
This was it right
Okay.
here. We did it
That's
as a
fine.
consensus scoring. We basically
Okay.
looked at the pros and cons and then decided which, what staff would recommend here.
Good.
And then another question, Ken, once again, it's on the investment side, under T-walls, it was about the request for tax abatement, and not sure if that's allowed or legal. Do we have any further insight on that, or can that insight be gained by next Tuesday?
We could have it by next Tuesday, I believe. I don't.
Correct. So
Yeah.
our attorney has been out, but I think that's one of the things we'd have to look at, just how specifically the deal was structured. We can't abate, per state law, like current taxes, existing taxes, so we'd have to look in terms of how you would balance an occupancy permit with when it actually then would hit the tax roll. So there's a little bit of a challenge, I think, in terms of, the developer wanting to get their occupancy permit so somebody could move in,
Yep.
but not doing so in a way that would necessarily trigger the assessment. And so I think we just have to talk through the legalities and mechanics of how that would particularly work in that instance. Or would it have to be structured differently? I think the understanding is, the developer is looking basically, right, during that period to not have to take that hit of having to make payments before revenues were coming in. And so whether that could be actually done the way proposed, or would have to be perhaps upfront TIF in order to provide that subsidy,
Right.
that's something that we're still examining.
And is the 95% negotiable?
Everything's negotiable, right? I mean, and I think that's one of the things to talk through in terms of like when that trigger, would occur. And I think, again, those are details of a development agreement that would be worked on with whatever party
Right.
is selected. In terms of, I think there's things that's part of the closed session is negotiate, where does this, committee, then ultimately RDA, where do they feel comfortable, like we do in some of these agreements, in terms of, all right, what are kind of our sticking points, or how we'd like to approach this.
Do you get a good feel for how much TIF would be up front as compared to TIF as we go?
I can discuss a little bit
Okay.
about that. I ran some numbers on the spreadsheet here, so I can kind of discuss where we might fall and based on the increment, how it might play out.
Okay.
So is
That's
Gorman
more
a
of
pay-as-you-go?
closed session.
Yes,
Yes.
at this point, yes.
But Gorman is a pay-as-you-go.
I read that as that was an upfront.
Yeah,
That was an upfront request.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have any more questions on this. I wouldn't mind going into closed session.
Yeah, I think it's the right time to do that.
All right, then I just recommend reading the language.
The authority may convene in closed session pursuant to section 19.851E Wisconsin statute for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the sale of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The authority may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.852 Wisconsin statute to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda.
All right, Matt Schuler,
Here.
Jerry Delbo.
Here.
Okay. Close. Okay, resuming.
2 or 3 will be
All right,
there.
so to go back in open session, Matt Schuler,
Here.
Jerry Delbo.
Yes, here.
Kathy Hinkfist.
Here.
All right, so we're back. We're open session. Everybody wants to.
Anybody stuck around?
Nobody's there.
We'll just do electronic voting. Oh, even though we don't have
You want me to make no?
What's that? Yeah, we're good.
Start.
We're in open session. Yep.
Okay, we had a great chance to meet in closed session to talk about the 2 different proposals, and what I just first say is we are very pleased with both. Very, very appreciative of them. Great work by staff, great work by both developers as well, and thank you for the time that the developers put into them and for being here today as well. And with that, Kathy will lead with the motion.
So we, as committee, would like to make a motion to the RDA to accept the Gorman and Company LLC proposal and have the staff enter into agreement with them for finalizing of a development agreement.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Oh, hold up, we're going to do electronic. So used to.
Right, right.
Just when you get it down, right?
Mhm.
You go and change the rules on
You know, with dogs.
Passed unanimously.
Yes.
Very good. Excellent job.
Yeah,
Right, so
excellent job.
We'll go to
We're-
RDA next Tuesday then, or, yes.
Yes.
That's exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Very
Very
exciting.
exciting, thank you.
Congratulations,
Mhm.
Gorman, but also thank you for your proposal.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Excited.
Come back Tuesday.
Yes.
Right, here we go, all right. That's awesome.
Trying to pull this
Long
together.
time.
This is exciting.
Oh, we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a
Thanks,
motion, we
Take care.
adjourn.
Hey, second.
And Gary in his extinguished role.
Thanks.
Seconds in, so we are therefore adjourned.